Hi, welcome to Cinefilm Recap. On the plane, a blind fortune teller suddenly screams that everyone will die if they take off, but no one believes her. Today, we'll talk about the 2014 movie Last Flight. The airline steward named Lola awakens on board of a plane in chilly perspiration, all that feels like a haze. There is no other person except for Lola on board. Lola goes around the plane in frenzy and searches for her partners. The cockpit is vacant. At long last, Lola finds the skipper named Charles and sighs in alleviation. Anyway, inside the following second, Charles quietly opens the crisis exit and leaps out of the plane. Lola shouts and attempts to clutch the seat not to fly out of the plane, but she can't save herself. It was all just a bad dream. Lola wakes up on the bus that is taking her and her co-workers to the airport. The friends have a nice chat and get ready for the last flight from Taiwan to Singapore. The airlines plan to stop this flight for unknown reasons. The same plane is taken by her friends who are coming back from vacation. The thing is, a guy named Leslie paid for the whole trip, so he could spend time with his friends who were always busy. Leslie gives his friend Freddie money, who doesn't have any. Freddie's girlfriend Celine looks down on her boyfriend as they wait for the taxi. Even though everyone has to go through pre-flight screening, one man tries to bring a pocket knife on board. He says it isn't sharpened and that anything could be a weapon. Ethan and his wife Jasmine argue with the airport worker who is holding up the line. As you talk to your manager, a man named Wallace uses this to his advantage. He gets the attention of a mute little girl named Katie and shows her a trick with a toy. He needs this trick to hide something in her backpack that won't be seen by the X-ray machine. No one notices the strange object because the airport workers are distracted by how cute Katie is and start talking to her instead. The passengers and staff then board the plane, which is the last flight for the captain Charles. Charles wants the flight to go well because he wants to become a race car driver afterward. However, he just broke up with a flight attendant named Lola, so seeing her on board is a bit awkward for him. There are only 9 people on this flight, so the plane is almost empty. The flight attendants are kind and ask everyone to settle down. Ethan and Celine make up the sole brawlers in business class. Celine sits next to Freddie and shames him for always working and ignoring her. Plane leaves the ground. Charles knows that there is only enough fuel to get to Singapore, but he doesn't mind because he doesn't think anything will go wrong. During takeoff, Katie's blind companion Daisy jumps up from her seat and screams that the plane must land immediately because they can't fly this plane or everyone on board will die. To relieve the tension, the flight attendants calm Daisy down, while the rest of the passengers try to maintain their composure and ignore the frightening prediction. Leslie orders drinks and flirts. Jessica Lola, a flight attendant, enters the cockpit and wonders why the plane isn't accelerating. Charles hides his irritation and begs the girl to leave and come downstairs. Working the co-pilot scolds Charles and reminds him that Lola will become a pilot next year since Charles has taught her all about it during their relationship. Charles asks his colleague not to comment. Wallace keeps a close eye on Katie's bag and wants to get back the thing he put in it at the airport without anyone noticing. Katie's backpack shifts. Economy class travelers fall asleep after a long journey. Leslie rises slowly and approaches the flight attendant. Jessica. After flirting, young people go to the bathroom, tear each other's clothes off, and have sex. Jessica says the flight is 5 hours long, so they'll still have time to be bad. Leslie crashes into Celine and grabs her hand, leading her away from the bathroom. Celine has been dating Leslie for 2 months, cheating on her fiancé Freddie. Obviously, Celine doesn't know anything about Leslie's cheating. Celine asks for a little more time to work up the courage to break up with Freddie. In the meantime, Jessica is cleaning herself up in the bathroom. As soon as Suddy Wallace's sister uses the restroom, a mysterious shadow appears next to her. As Suddy sees Jessica's lifeless body and the flight attendant's shredded clothing with deep bloody scratches all over it, she lets out a piercing scream. Freddie is interested in forensic science, so he offers to look into it. After the initial shock wears off, the passengers will start to panic, and some will blame Leslie because he was the last person to use the bathroom. Charles arrives and tells passengers to stay calm because the Singapore police would board the plane when it lands. He doesn't let Freddie investigate so he doesn't destroy any evidence, but Lola exits after Charles goes. Yet when Charles leaves, Lola takes the initiative and asks Freddie to check the lifeless body of the flight attendant. The guy adds that Jessica's body shows scratches from animal claws. Freddie also finds a fatal bite wound on the girl's neck. Freddie and Lola enter the cockpit. Freddie claims that a toxic substance was ingested through the bites and scratches on the body, and that some kind of mammal left them. But there are no creatures on Earth that have such a vast supply of poison. Ethan overhears this narrative and runs to the cabin to frighten other passengers. Charles tries to calm everyone, but the plane loses power. In order to resolve the issue, Charles orders the co-pilot to go to the technical compartment. He doesn't come back for a long time. Then Lola and Freddy are there, and they go down to find the pilot's body, which has the same injuries as Jessica's. Charles tells the dispatcher right away what happened. The dispatcher says that people have been attacked by strange poisonous animals on a tropical island before. The dispatcher says that the medical team will wait for the plane in Singapore. The plane just needs to get there. Charles wants his final trip to be as tranquil as possible, despite Freddy's belief that it is vital to inform the passengers about everything, so he doesn't let him make the situation worse. While Ethan goes to the bathroom, Jasmine takes a strong sleep aid and takes a nap. Something comes up to her and starts growling. She doesn't understand she's in danger in the economy class hotel. Freddy gathers his courage and tells Celine he knows that now is not the best time to do it, but there was no other chance. Freddy tells them that he bought them a nice four-bedroom apartment right in the middle of Shanghai. He promised Celine he would do it, but he had to work hard to save for the apartment, so he spent little time with her. Celine hugs him and praises him for her sympathy for Freddy. No longer wants to break up with him, screaming as Jasmine descends from the upper cabin. Everyone gathers around her scratched body. Jasmine Wallace hurries back to the cottage and retrieves Katie's backpack to find his surprise. No package. Wallace collapses and yells at Katie. Lola and Sadie go toward the screams. He's not himself anymore. He admits that he found something on the island and brought it with him. It was an animal's bones. The cat's dead body. The man made sure the animal was dead, and he even put the cat in a coffin so it couldn't get away. However, Ethan doesn't care about these details, which he hears during the confession, and he beats up the man, blaming him for all the problems. "Why'd you bring this plate, dead man?" Ethan instantly leaves Wallace to save his wife. Leslie smacks Wallace. As soon as Freddy separates them, he realizes that Wallace didn't want anyone to die and that the poisonous monster is to blame for everything. Leslie takes his anger out on Freddy right away. He boasts that he is dating Celine behind her back. The girl can't say anything. Wallace gets up and admits he did wrong. He goes to the business class cabin by himself and starts looking for the monster. Everyone will soon hear a scream. Sooty can't take it anymore and runs after her brother. The monster attacks the girl and hurts her. The monster did not hurt him. All it did was scare him. Wallace carries down his hurt sister. Lola tells Charles about the new people who have died. Charles says that the weather is getting worse and that the autopilot has stopped working. Since he can't leave the steering wheel, he decides to close the door to the cockpit so that the monster doesn't get to him, because if it does, no one will be able to fly the plane. Now that Lola is in charge of the cabin, Charles trusts her. There is still an hour and 15 minutes until landing, and the monster is getting stronger. Lola tells everyone to stay together so that no one has to face the monster by themselves. But Freddy locks himself in the toilet, wipes his face, and accepts that his lover cheated on him with his buddy Celine waiting outside the door. She tells Freddy she'll tell him everything and asks him to forgive her. The man realizes that now is not the time to figure things out. He thinks that right now, the most important thing is to make it through the lightning flashes around the plane. Charles tries to maneuver between the strikes, which causes the plane to tilt, and the passengers aren't able to stay in their seats. Sooty's state gets even worse. At the same time, Leslie hears that the monster is getting closer. He causes Blind Daisy to scream so the creature would attack her, and Daisy dies in the sea. Lola runs to her and finds Katie's drawings on the seat next to hers. In these drawings, Katie predicts what will happen to each passenger, and so far, everything has been true. When Celine ends her relationship with Leslie for good, Leslie calls him a selfish coward and says that Freddy is the real man. Charles tells the dispatchers over the speaker that they have asked about the monster. These beasts were extinct decades ago but started attacking people again last October, so they cancelled all flights to the island. These animals do well in the cold, so Charles advises everyone to go up to the well-heated business class cabin and barricade themselves there. Sooty refuses and Wallace stays with her. The brother and sister barricaded themselves in the toilet. Wallace asks his sister for forgiveness, saying he filled the monster with plaster and wanted a souvenir. Sooty gets it and doesn't blame her brother, but she regrets her past sins and feels lonely. Wallace says he will always be there for her. hugs his sister and sings a song to calm her down. The monster hears the music, and at the last second, he jumps into the toilet. Wallace is able to get his sister out of the bathroom. Suddy tears and requests to be escorted into the business class cabin, but Leslie refuses until Freddy strikes him in the face and calls him a coward. Suddy is allowed in, followed by wounded Freddy. When Wallace a Commonquel, Alophengeropedin, Butethan Skredensady, Hebrax the Suisandachans. No one is brave enough to fight him, so Ethan goes to the captain. He tells the captain that Charles needs to leave the cockpit and share the fate of the passengers. Wallace tells Ethan to get water for his sister. Just then, the plane starts to shake again, and Wallace falls to the floor. Once he gets up the courage, he pounces on Ethan. The angry guy pushes the sharp handle of the suitcase into Wallace's stomach. Wallace bleeds out and falls to the floor. Suddy runs to help him and tries to calm down the angry guy. Celine tells a lie that a cure for the monster's poison has already been sent to the Singapore airport. Lola calls her friends right away to show them Katie's drawings, even though the girl had already drawn Wallace dead. Katie's prediction was that the plane would land safely, even though the weather was getting worse. Landing in Singapore. A typhoon is already raging there. The plane must alter course and fly to Phuket. Hearing this, Ethan gets even angrier. He forces Lola to demonstrate where the parachutes are threatening with the suitcase handle. He leads everyone to the emergency exit. He wants to jump out in Singapore with his wife. Jasmine feels unwell since she drank too much water, but heartbroken Ethan doesn't care. Ethan forces Charles to lower the jet to 3,000 meters. Otherwise he will kill the staff and passengers. Lola waits and tries to take the murder weapon from Ethan, but he reacts and hits the flight attendant. Freddy and Leslie then attack him. Ethan used to be in the military, so he knows how to fight much better than the guys. However, a monster soon attacks Ethan. Jasmine panics and runs to his body, but the monster drags her and his body into its lair instead. Everyone else goes back to the first-class cabin, where Lola calls Charles. He says that there isn't much fuel left and that lightning hit the right wing, but that he can still fly the plane. Charles also feels bad about breaking up with Lola and says he was too self-centered. The girl understands and says she misses him too. Soon, the monster attacks a flight attendant named Susan after sneaking into the business class cabin. Then Lola rushes the passengers to the cockpit, where they can hear the monster's roar. Now that Lola, Freddy, and Leslie had the courage, they went back to the cabin to kill the monster. They armed themselves with homemade weapons in an effort to draw the monster's attention away from themselves, and they quickly succeed in doing so. Lola switches on a soft melody. An angry black cat emerges from behind the curtain, hisses, races about the cabin, and jumps very high while companions try to kill it. Nevertheless, the animal simply grows angrier and more monstrous as the song continues to play. An angry blackader sees him, hisses, Rasabutha Thekabin, and jumps Verifians while, nevertheless, Theanal Simpligeranus tries to attack the cat, but the monster is faster and attacks Leslie while he is on his deathbed. Leslie asks Freddy for forgiveness and says he is not a coward. The cat then tries to get into the cockpit. Charles fastens a seat belt around the steering wheel and quickly opens the door in the hopes of crushing the beast with it. Nevertheless, the cat does not give up and scratches Charles' chest through the metal before escaping. After losing his strength, the captain returns to his chair and gets ready to land. Lola and Freddy keep looking for the cat. Charles wants Lola to drive the car instead of him, so he goes to find her. Lola uses a musical toy to attract a cat, and then Charles runs up to his friends. He dons a parachute and stands near the emergency exit. Then Charles rapidly opens the door, jumps out of the plane, and the cat is carried out of the cabin by the powerful airflow. Nonetheless, the cat manages to cling to his leg. Lola and Freddy attempt to pull Charles' line back inside, but the cat refuses to release go of Charles' leg. As a result, Charles chooses to fasten the cable and jump out of the plane with the cat, and strong airflow pulls the animal out of the cabin. Charles trips and falls. Lola closes the emergency exit door with tears and runs to the cockpit. She can see the city lights below and does what Charles taught her. One engine fails, the wing has a crack, the wing falls off the plane as soon as it lands, and the chassis also collapses. But despite all of this, brave Lola is able to land the plane safely. She tells the dispatcher that Charles has died and sobs and cries at the airport, where all of the injured passengers are given medical care. Suddenly, a worker with a radio runs up to Lola and says, "Lola, I have a message for you." Charles gets in touch with her because his parachute opened and he was able to get away. Lola is happy because young people want to get together with her. After that, we see how a guy and a girl travel around Taiwan. The music awakens the monsters in the depths of the cave, and countless crimson eyes begin to glow. So, what do you think about this recap? Please write on the comment section. Assuming you partaking in the recap, kindly consider like and subscribe into Cinefilm Recap. Gratitude for observing.